In July, the U.S. population will hit 325,719,178. This number, though, is just a guess. It's a projection based on the last official count by the U.S. Census in 2010. Right now, at least 2 states say they plan to sue the Trump administration because of a plan for the next census in 2020. The Commerce Department announced on Monday night that it will include a question about citizenship. That's for the first time since the 1950s. A Trump campaign email sent to supporters last week revealed the president's support for the change. It reads in part, "In another era, this would be common sense." But critics say the citizenship question would make the census less accurate. 10 News reporter Isabel Mascareñas found out some really interesting advice when filling out the census.
What would you advise your client or anyone who's not a citizen out there? Should they answer the question?
I would tell them don't answer the form at all. If they check on that form or say yes, they are a U.S. citizen, they could later potentially be deported from the United States for falsely claiming to be a U.S. citizen.
If they have their paperwork in order and they still answer the citizenship question honestly and say, no, I'm not a citizen.
They're not a citizen, then they should have nothing to fear. But as the attorney, I see people make mistakes every day. And so my concern would be they don't understand the question, they don't fill it out correctly.
To gain the information the census needs, is the question of citizenship necessary?
I don't think it's necessary at all, and it apparently hasn't been necessary for 70 years. So why is it all of a sudden needed now?
What do you think that motive is?
I would be concerned that they're trying to find out who's out there that is not a citizen of the United States.
And why was it taken off?
Our situation was a lot different in 1950 than it is now. In 1950, we had a very low immigrant rate in this country.
Is it illegal not to answer your census?
Technically, it is. You are required, you're mandated to complete the form and fill out the answers. However, it's my understanding that there hasn't been a prosecution since 1970 for not answering it. If they answer yes and that's not true, that could basically be the death penalty as far as they're concerned, because they will then possibly be subject to deportation.
The census counts the population every 10 years, but that number is used for more than just knowing how many people live here. 10 News reporter Phil Buck explains how census results are used for more than you might think.
Why do we even do the census? Okay, well, 2 big reasons. The first is called apportionment, which is really a fancy way of saying this is how we collect all of the data that's used to redraw the lines of the congressional districts every 10 years. And it can be super important, especially here in Florida, where we have so many people living here, so many people moving here. In the last census in 2010, we added 2 U.S. House representatives thanks to the census data. And there's a good chance we may get some more this time around. The second reason is money. Census data helps us determine how more than $675 billion in federal funding gets distributed to states and communities every year. We're talking federal dollars that go toward things like transportation, education, healthcare, hospitals, and housing. And I know some of you out there are saying, look, I don't trust it, all right? I'm not giving the government my information. Well, I went and I asked that question to an expert. Sean Sullivan is executive director at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. They work closely with census data. He's been doing this for 30 years.
It's really not used to track you, unlike Facebook, which has had some challenges even of this week. My understanding, and I've been doing this for 30 years, is that census data is meant to help Americans, not to hurt them. So my suggestion is don't be suspect, be counted, get counted. It's important that folks participate in the census so that we get our fair share of federal and state dollars, and that we get the right representation in terms of numbers in the United States Congress.
Well, there you go. If we want to get our fair share of representation in Congress and our fair share of government funding, we all should fill out the census.
Now, during today's White House press briefing, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said the citizenship question has been asked every year since 1965, except for 2010. That is not true. That question has been included. It has not been included since 1952. Some community surveys have included it.